Welcome everyone. Take a moment to stretch, look around and see who's here while I count them. 26. We got 26 people here and 12 there. So that's 38, almost 40 people. That's good for tonight. I'm Clyde, one of the Dharma leaders here at Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. So welcome. I don't know if y'all seen it. I know y'all on here haven't seen it. See if y'all can y'all read this sign? Y'all can't read it on there. It says nothing is permanent, and then it goes away that way. And this is the same sign here. So guess what I'm going to be talking about tonight? This is another version of that. Anyway, I was listening to a tape on the Anapanasati Sutta with the mindfulness of breathing, and there's 16 steps in it. And then you really calm your mind. Then you get to the 13th step, and it said, now you're going to take everything you're going to take the first 12 steps, and you're going to look at them with impermanence. You go back and look at them all over impermanence, and you look at the next 3 steps with impermanence. And I thought, well, impermanence must have a lot of importance here. And I thought I knew impermanence, and we all know what impermanence is. We all kind of know that's what it is. Impermanence is impermanent. Everything's impermanent. But I thought it must have a lot. What did I miss? What did I miss about impermanence? And so I started looking into it. And sure enough, I did miss a lot of stuff. So tonight we're going to deep dive into impermanence. It's called anicca, the Pali word anicca. And anicca means constant. So anicca means inconstant. So you can look at it as inconstance. Or you can look at it as change. And I wonder, well, how important is this thing called impermanence that I've known about for 30 years now? The Buddha's final words to his disciples, impermanent, subject to change, are component things. Strive on with heedfulness. The Buddha's last words. At the Buddha's death, Shaka, one of the chief deities, whether you believe that or not, said, impermanent are all component things. Component things, that's us, and everything. They arise and cease, that is their nature. They come into being and pass away. Release from them is bliss supreme. Norman Fisher says, impermanence is the number one inescapable and essentially painful fact of life. It is the singular existential problem that the whole edifice of Buddhist practice is meant to address. To understand impermanence at the deepest possible level, we all understand it at a superficial level, and to merge with it fully is the whole of the Buddhist path. So it's getting to be more and more important as we go through here. The Japanese Zen master Dogen says, impermanence is itself Buddha nature. For Dogen, impermanence isn't a problem to be overcome with diligent effort on the path. Impermanence is the path. Practice isn't the way to cope with or overcome impermanence. It is the way to fully appreciate and live with it. Bhikkhu Bodhi says, impermanence forms the bedrock for the Buddhist teachings. So I must have missed something along the way. So where do we see this in the teachings? These people say this is important. Where do I see it in the teachings? And most of these teachings you've probably heard of, except maybe the first one. The first is one that I kind of came across here recently. I've heard it before, but I've never really worked with it. And this is the natural law of conditionality. And I'll give you the way it phrases, and I'll tell you what it means. It says, because this exists, there is this. Due to the arising of this, this arises. Because this does not exist, this does not exist. Due to the quenching of this, this quenches. What that simply means is everything arises, establishes itself, proceeds, and ends according to the law of conditionality. And this is a very broad thing, very broad. Everything. Everything arises. I arise, the flowers rise, the computer's going to rise and pass away, this building's going to rise and pass away. Everything, a phenomena, everything in the world is a component and arises and passes away. So it says, whatever mental or physical, animate or inanimate, having to do with human beings or not, all phenomena are conditioned through this conditionality. This law is that's a natural law of conditionality. If we're speaking for specifically about a sentient being, for instance, they experience feelings of happiness and suffering. We've heard the idea of dependent origination. That's the law of conditionality applied specifically to humans and the rising and passing away of suffering. And that is how suffering arises in sentient beings. That is the first and the second noble truth. There's a cause and there's a way of getting out of suffering. It is also right view. If you read the Majjhima Nikaya number 9, right view, it's all about dependent origination. It's rising and passing away of suffering. We all hear about clinging, attachment as the cause of suffering. We also, if we look at the 5 aggregates of clinging, the Buddha does this. He says, Bhikkhus, what do you think? And there's a material form, feeling, tone, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. Those are the 5 aggregates. That's what makes us up. He says, Bhikkhus, what do you think? Is material form impermanent or permanent? It's impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this is I, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Those are the 3 factors of existence: impermanence, suffering or unsatisfactory, dukkha, and the idea of impersonality of not self. Impermanence is the doorway to the other 2. He did the same thing when you get into the 6 senses, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the touch, the mind. He did the same. He went through that same process. Is I consciousness? Is I permanent, impermanent? Is it suffering? It goes all the way through all 6 of those. There's another teaching that's in 5 daily reflections that we talk about in here. I am the nature of old age, to get old. I am the nature to get ill. I have the nature to die. I'm of the nature to be separated from all those that I love. All 4 out of the 5 are all about change, all about impermanence. And then we get into right mindfulness. This is the Satipatthana Sutta. This is on the Eightfold Path again. In the Satipatthana refrain, which is in there for 13 times, she abides contemplating the nature of arising in the body, or she abides contemplating the nature of passing away in the body, or she abides contemplating both the arising and the passing away of the body. And the body is just one of the 13 Satipatthanas that you work with. So it's in there 13 times. So this idea of arising and passing away. And I always thought, it seems like the teachings are in everything. In the Uttara Nikaya, it says, perception of impermanence established the perception of not self, and thereby leads to the destruction of conceit and the realization of nirvana here and now. I kind of looked at him. I always thought I knew what impermanence was, but I always kind of, I know impermanence. I kind of can work with suffering. This thing of not self is what's really I can't get my hands around, But I missed the first step. I have missed the first step. I know what it is, but I missed it. But it's not necessarily bad. Impermanent's not bad. It sounds like it's a bad thing, but if things weren't impermanent, we would never get out of this round of samsara. We'd never be able to change. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh says about it. This is from his book on the Impermanence Sutta, which I was also reading. He says, we have to look deeply at change in order to accept it as a necessary part of life and not be surprised or suffer so greatly when it occurs. We look deeply at the impermanence of our own body, the impermanence of things around us, the impermanent nature of the people we love, the impermanent nature of those who cause us to suffer. If we do not look deeply at impermanence, we may think of it as a negative aspect of life because it takes away from us the things we love. But looking deeply, we see that impermanence is neither negative or positive. It is just impermanence. Without impermanence, life would not be possible. Without impermanence, how can we hope to transform our suffering and the suffering of our loved ones into happiness? Without impermanence, how can we hope that a tyrannical regime might be democratic? This was written in 1990. So this idea, we know, we were studying with the DSP the other night, we had to remember there's this idea of levels of knowledge. There's learned knowledge, and that's what when we read out of books and teachers and things. There's the idea of reflective knowledge, where we kind of reflect on what we did, we start testing things out. And then there's the idea of realized knowledge, and that's this direct, immediate experience. And here Thich Nhat Hanh again says, understanding impermanence is not a matter of words or concepts, but a matter of practice. So I started to think about this. I haven't looked at this. I kind of knew intellectually impermanence. We kind of know that. But when do we start living out of impermanence? Living really knowing this? I really don't know it. I don't know it. I know I don't have the direct. I'm still working with the kind of this reflective, because this is getting deep into this. This is getting deeper into the practice. I'm working, so this is kind of what I'm doing. I've just kind of started working with this lately, so they're going to give you some ideas on how I'm working with it. How do I see things as just impermanence? I'm looking at things, the process of impermanence. I'm going to start out globally, big. I like history. If we look at civilizations, I wish I had kind of had this perspective when I was in Italy a year and a half ago, walking around in Rome. To be in an historical situation and think of impermanence, you see the Colosseum, you see the Forum, you go, okay, that looks impermanent, but to really be there and feel that would be a different experience of that impermanence. All the old civilization, everything's gone. If you look historically, everything's changed. The second one is nature. I love going for walks. I went for a long walk today with my dog down at Ann Springs Close. And nature's a great way, because the trees are there falling over, they're dead, they're that way. It's like you just see the cycle. And then I started thinking about this. That's why I brought these tonight. I'll show you. I need to show them. Here you go. What do you see here? See a beautiful flower. All right, I want to go back to this idea of conditionality. Everything's a component. How did this flower come to be? Can I see this? Can I see the original seed? Can I see the soil? Can I see the sunshine? Can I see the water? Can I see the person who took care of this? Can I see all the things, all the components that brought this into being? Can I see, and just the fact that I'm sitting here holding it, what's happening to this as I hold it? It's dying. It's going to fade. It's going to come up. The conditions made it. It came up. It's existing, and it's starting to fade away. So can I look at that? Can I look at things now and begin to see all this behind it, all the conditionality, all the conditions behind it? See it through the impermanence. Now, when I started looking at it, that sounds kind of depressing. But we're going deeper. We're seeing that because then I see everything's conditioned. There's not this separation. We're not separate. We're all built from these conditions. We're all changing, just like these flowers are. And then, of course, the body. We all get to experience the change in the body. You're walking in nature, and this is great. You see the trees, and there's impermanence there. You see that. Then you begin to feel this ache in your knee, and it's like, oh, there's impermanence right there. There's impermanence happening right there. Can I see that as impermanence? Can I see it arising? And this body is going to rise, and it's going to pass away. Your body, I mean, as I age, the aches and pains, things I can do about it, things I can't do about it. But it's all impermanent. It's just impermanence. We begin like, it's just impermanence. It's going to rise, it's going to pass away. Can I see it with that? Another good way I'm trying to look at this is if I see suffering, like if I'm suffering, I can look at deeply at the suffering that I'm experiencing, and I go like, usually I'm trying to hold on to something or push it away. I want something to be different than what it is right now. If I look deeper into that, what am I holding on to, and is it impermanent? Is it a view that I have? I have this view, but it's impermanent. How many views have you had over your lifetime? Have they changed? If I can see what's impermanent, it helps to let me go, or at least let me loosen up around it a little bit and to accept other things. This is impermanent. This is going to change. Next time you're sitting in traffic, you're sitting there, you're stuck, this is impermanent. How does your perspective change if you're sitting on this is impermanent? How is it different? So we're getting down closer and closer and closer. Our meditation practice, my meditation practice, can I begin to see this process of impermanence? When we're working with the breath, I've worked with the breath for years. It's in, it's out, it's in and out. Can I begin to see that as a process of change, a process of impermanence? It comes in, see it more, not the content of it, but the process of impermanence around that as it comes and goes. What I'll begin to see in that, hope maybe, is, or thoughts, another thing, the process of impermanence. It's impermanence, arises and pass away. There's also, I'm not that thinker. I'm not that breather. It arises and passes away on its own. But it's impermanence. It's a process of impermanence, or this flow. So what we're doing here is we're working this idea of this intellectual understanding of impermanence, working with this reflective, working with impermanence, so that we get a deeper understanding of it. But it's impermanence, like I said earlier, impermanence is the doorway to suffering and not self. And some people say impermanence is suffering, but it's the doorway. And I missed it. I kept jumping right over it. I knew what impermanence was, but I haven't spent time really knowing what his impermanent is. And so that's what I'm working on. It takes time. It's going to take a lot of practice. It takes mindfulness to see that, to be able to remember to look at that. So I'm going to experiment with this and see if I can start to embody this idea of impermanence, if I can go a little bit deeper with it. And I'm wondering what it would be like if I lived out of impermanence. If I just wonder, would I be a little bit more flexible? Would I be more patient? Oh, that's why I get upset about this, you know. Would I be more forgiving? Would I be kinder? Would I be able to see things that were not separate? So I want to try to work on that and see, what would I be like? What it would be like to live really knowing what impermanence was. So I'm going to close tonight with a poem that may reflect that. This is by Ellen Bass. She's a contemporary poet. It's called If You Knew. What if you knew you'd be the last to touch someone? If you were taking tickets, for example, at the theater, tearing them, giving them back the ragged stubs, you might take care to touch that palm, brush your fingers along the lifeline crease. When a man pulls his wheeled suitcase too slowly through the airport, when the car in front of me doesn't signal, when the clerk at the pharmacy doesn't say thank you, I don't remember they're going to die. A friend told me she'd been with her aunt. They just had lunch, and the waiter, a young gay man with plum black eyes, joked as he served the coffee, kissed her aunt's powdered cheek when they left. When they walked half a block, and her aunt dropped dead on the sidewalk. How close does the dragon spume have to come? How wide does the crack in heaven have to split? What would people look like if we could see them as they are, soaked in honey, stung and swollen, reckless, pinned against time? Thank you.